I've been pumping up Arkansas LSU all show. Heck, we've been doing that all week because we had a midweek game to get to. LSU had a midweek game against Grambling, shut them out on Tuesday while Arkansas was pitching against their own hitters. And we'll get into this series and other stuff going on here in Baton Rouge with Wilson Alexander. He's beat writer, LSU reporter at the Advocate newspaper in Baton Rouge. You can follow him on Twitter at WHAlexander_. Wilson, appreciate your time. Also appreciate your coverage of LSU baseball. You guys do really good work there at the Advocate. How are you today?
Excellent. Came down with some sort of something, but a pleasure to be talking with y'all, and thank you for having me on.
You get some sort of something. I guess that means you're not going to be at the ballpark for the next couple of days then. You'll be covering from afar?
Most likely, yeah. I don't want to put anybody, don't know what it is just yet, but don't put anybody, don't want to be irresponsible and put anybody at risk. So.
Yeah, well, we're already going to have a full house. I mean, it's going to 100% capacity, no masks, anything like that. So I could appreciate where you're coming from and your attitude about that. I wonder from your perspective, and you know this fan base here, what is the attitude of the fans that are showing up today? Because, you haven't been able to have 100% capacity at any sporting event since the last 100% capacity they had at Alex Box Stadium before the shutdown last year. But this is not the sort of LSU season fans are used to. So what do you think the atmosphere is going to be like tonight?
I'm really curious to find out because the weather also doesn't look fantastic. It seems like the rain is going to hold off maybe until Sunday and just be overcast. Paul Maneri was a little bit worried about, the weather affecting the crowd as well, because obviously if it's raining and sort of touch and go, then you might not get as big of a crowd, but it seems like it might hold off, so that would help. And then, I think that the weather's, other than that, it's pretty nice in terms of the temperature and all that, so I feel like people are going to be excited to have something to go out to do. They've been, wanting to go to an LSU sporting event at full capacity for a long time. The 50%, the raise to 50% didn't seem to change much because the team wasn't all that great this season, but I think having 100 will make a difference in terms of the excitement level around the ballpark. Tailgating is back too. That obviously plays in for everybody, but especially LSU fans. So it should be a good, typical environment at the box all weekend.
Okay, but it certainly is not a typical LSU record. Maybe the talent level is typical because the talent looks like it's there. It's just not quite developed fully just yet. Maybe nobody's ever fully developed in college baseball, but it might have taken this LSU team a little bit longer to develop. And I don't know if I put it, just on the Jaden Hill injury, because they were having their ups and downs before Hill, was shut down for the season. It just looks like it's a young team that still has been trying to figure it out with a talent level, though.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, no, they are talented. You're seeing the problem is that a lot of the most talented guys are all freshmen. Dylan Cruz, Trey Morgan, Jordan Thompson, those are three of their best players, three of their everyday position guys, and they're all freshmen going to the SEC for the first time. Even someone like Cade Doty, who's technically, I guess, a sophomore, he has never been through the SEC before. That's your starting third baseman. They only had a couple of guys in the lineup who have ever experienced SEC play before this season, and even then, only one of them had more than 200 at-bats for a year, and that was Cade Beloso, who has struggled at times as the DH. So, yeah, I think that they're taking them time to develop. They're having to get experience. The SEC is so difficult. They have one of the most difficult schedules in an already difficult conference, which is, currently I think their strength of schedule is number one in the nation. And they're just, having to adjust to that and catch up to it. And they're starting to the last few weeks. They've really come around, especially on the offensive side of things. The Jaden injury I don't think has done too much other than to just hurt the depth of a pitching staff that has not been as good as it was projected to be. A lot of their upperclassmen haven't been quite as they expected. And so, again, they're relying on a ton of freshmen out of the bullpen other than Devin Fontenot. And those are guys all kind of getting used to the SEC as well. And it just takes them it takes time to do that.
Yeah, well, in Fontenot's case, I know he's been out there in some 3-inning situations, some shorter situations. It seems to me it's pretty imperative that they're going to need Fontenot a couple of times if LSU pulls out a series win here, because late leads have been very difficult for LSU to hold, even in situations where Fontenot's been out there. And I just went back and looked at the numbers, Wilson, and it seems like this series could come down to this. LSU has allowed 39% of their opponents' runs this year in the last 3 innings of regulation. That's an incredible amount. 76 runs allowed in 40 games, innings 7, 8, and 9. You know, this Arkansas team has already won 7 games when trailing at the end of 6. This is a team that usually beats up the opposing bullpen. That does not bode well for LSU this weekend.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I knew that LSU had, given up a bunch of leads and given up a bunch of runs at the end of games, but I didn't know that stat. That's enlightening. I think it absolutely comes down to that kind of a matchup. Fontenot, while they would love to use him multiple times out of the bullpen, first of all, they're going to need to have a lead near the end in order to use him. Otherwise, they won't waste him. But he isn't quite as good the second time on a weekend. At least he hasn't been this year. Like in the South Carolina series, for instance, he pitched in the first game of the series, and he was great. I think he threw a perfect, almost like a perfect inning. But he comes back out a couple days later. They're winning 2-0 in the 7th of a 7-inning game, and there are a couple runners on base, and he ends up allowing a few hits, and LSU loses 4-2. So he's their best option, but even he has had his struggles at times this year. Getting through innings, just pitching clean innings, it's usually a little bit of a roller coaster. So LSU would love to use him a couple times, but it might not have that luxury. And yeah, like you said, that the LSU bullpen has been its Achilles heel as of late, really all year. And sometimes they've been able to overcome it, but I mean, just this past week against Ole Miss, they weren't able to. And like you said, Arkansas with that prolific offense could tee off once it gets into the 6th or later.
Wilson Alexander joining us here on Halftime. Wilson, switching away from baseball just for a moment, and LSU's been making some big-time headlines here in the past few weeks, particularly in the women's college basketball realm, bringing in Kim Mulkey into the fold here at LSU, leaving Baylor and coming to Baton Rouge. This is an impressive hire for this program, and the ability to – I think it says a lot about this LSU athletic department that's able to – quite honestly, pull her away from Baylor, where she was an established commodity with that Baylor women's basketball program. Just how impressive was it by LSU to pull her away from Baylor and bring her into Baton Rouge?
Yeah, it was absolutely impressive. They've never quite made such a financial commitment to women's basketball as they, did just this past week. They are paying her a ton of money, upping her reported salary from Baylor, which is, of course, a private university, so it's hard to get that number. But there's a lot of excitement now around women's basketball here. They're selling a lot more season tickets. It just shows how, they're going to try to win in that sport now. Even though it's not like they haven't tried to win in the past, but Nikki Vargas made $700,000, and now Kim Mulkey's going to get paid $2.5 million in her first year. But it's certainly a big boost to the sport for them. We'll see how she does.
Phil, over an 8-year deal where Kim Mulkey signed $23.6 million deal for her to come to LSU. Absolutely crazy. And Wilson, when you factor that in, and then you factor in the investigation surrounding LSU right now within their athletic department, for you guys being a journalist with the Advocate, this must be it's crazy time to be a journalist down in Baton Rouge right now for everything that you get to cover right now, both good and controversial at LSU right now.
It's exhausting. There's never a dull moment. It's funny, people ask me about, covering them, and I started in 2019, and I remember our columnist Scott Rabelais said, really since that fall before, and then in 2018, ever since then, it's just been one thing after another, after another, after another. Some good, some not so good. I mean, we've covered a national championship, and then the worst season of this century for LSU the very next year. It's been just a whirlwind covering this program, this school. It doesn't seem like that's going to be over anytime soon as they continue to reckon with, how they handle sexual misconduct cases on campus. That's going to continue to be something that we cover, and obviously probably the most important thing that we are covering when it comes to them. And then with athletics, it's always something here as well.
I wonder about I hate using the term hot seat, but like the temperature for Paul Maneri, who is one of the most successful head baseball coaches in the sport's history. I mean, he does have a national title. He's done great things at LSU and at Notre Dame, and a fantastic baseball coach and a very optimistic person, always has a smile on his face. But, you can't help but notice that it has been since 2017, the last trip to the College World Series, and I think that LSU fans expect more than that. And it's not like he'd be let go right now, but I just kind of wonder about the feeling about Paul Mainieri around Baton Rouge right now.
Yeah, you can tell that the fan base is unhappy, certainly. They expect to be competitive in baseball every single year. They expect to make it to the College World Series every single year. And while that might not be quite realistic just because of how good college baseball has gotten across the country, they do expect to be competitive. And being 6-12 in the league this year is, amongst LSU fans, just unacceptable. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like you said, sort of if there's, of course, when it comes to the fan base, that seat's hot. I don't know about when it comes to the administration, the people who really make decisions, but they're going to have to start winning games. I mean, like you said, it's been a few years since they made it to the College World Series now. Since Skip Bertman became head coach in 1986, I think the longest LSU has gone without making to the CWS is 3 years. That's happened a couple times, so they've had a 3-year stretch of not going. This would be 3 years if they don't make it this year, and it looks like they're not going to unless they just put up an incredible run. So they've got to start getting better in all facets of the game. They've certainly got a young core that's promising, but they've got to get better.
Yeah. Well, they got two of the three weaker teams in the SEC after the Razorbacks are finished with Auburn and Texas A&M. I know they host Alabama, but LSU, and maybe this is the most shocking, they just can't win their home games this year. It has more to do with the opponents than the ballpark they're playing in. But to see 2-7 at home in the SEC is just flat out maybe more surprising than seeing 6-12 in the conference for this program.
Yeah, it might be. They've had Vanderbilt at home, and obviously it got swept. Mississippi State at home and lost 2 of 3, and those were within their first 3 series of the year. That's 5 of those losses that you mentioned. All coming against those two teams, which are, of course, 2 of the best in the league. They haven't had a home field advantage at Alex Box, really, because it's been 50% at best this year. Well, of course, those fans are rooting for LSU, not the other team. It's not the same loud sort of ear-pounding screaming that you get usually at Alex Box. They won't have that now until this weekend. So we'll see if that can make a difference, if they can kind of get back in the win column at home. But it really comes down to the teams that they've been playing and the situation they're just in as a team.
Yeah, I've always thought it's about the team on the field, not the field that they're playing on. Wilson, appreciate your time. Hope you feel better. Good luck covering it from afar these next 2-3 days.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you all for having me. Have a great rest of your day.
You got it. That's Wilson Alexander covering LSU athletics at the Advocate in Baton Rouge. One of the really good sports sections that covers the SEC. I want to remind you about the Fence Man. If you've always wanted a powered automatic gate at your home or business but just didn't know who to call, the Fence Man is who you need to call. And the number is 479-782-3936. They do it all. Custom wrought iron installation, automatic gates, controlled access systems, camera, security installations, much more. Also ask about 18-month same as cash financing. For your custom fence and gate needs, it's the Fence Man. 479-782-3936. The Fence Man ain't afraid of no work. Wrap the show up. Alexander Dumas of the week. Here's a hint. He's in Baton Rouge with me.